Hi guys, welcome to IIM Bangalore. I don't know if you guys know this, but in India, only 7% of urban Indian women work, compared to the US, which is 44%, or even Pakistan or Bangladesh, which is 27%. But as Bob Dylan said, the times they are changing. We're here with four very interesting women entrepreneurs, and we're going to hear their journey on how they started up, what fears they faced, what problems they faced, and how NSRCEL helped them become who they are today. So we have four very interesting entrepreneurs, and let's get started to talk to them. Right. So can I know your name and what you do?
Hi, I'm Honey. I founded a company called Mountain Bee Kombucha. It's a food and beverage startup. Kombucha is a fairly new beverage as such. So it's a probiotic beverage that is made by fermenting tea. So imagine wines and beers, but better and not alcoholic, and it's great for your gut. And I came to Bangalore for my studies back in 2008, and I worked in corporate field before starting Mountain Bee Kombucha.
That is a very, very cool story. Can I know your name and what you do, please?
I'm Leanne Thais. I'm a psychological therapist, and I've started a company called The Unopened Box. It is a mental health organization where we offer people chances to heal themselves in a way that is creative, innovative, and progressive. And the reason we started this company was because we realized that there's so much stigma and difficulty in accessing mental health in our country. And one of the things that we noticed is our clients are extremely proud of us and talk about us openly on Instagram. They post about us, they share stories on LinkedIn. And that's when we said, let's take this further and see what we can do to get people talking about mental health and bring mental health into the homes of people so that they can connect, whether it's children, family, grandparents, parents, everybody, bring them together talking about mental health.
That is so cool, Jan. I think mental health is not only the need of the hour, I think everybody should probably get therapy at some point in their life. So congratulations on your startup.
Thank you.
Can I know what's your name and what you do?
I'm Preeti Vikram. I'm an educator, a leadership mentor, and a parenting coach. I run a chain of preschools called Podar Jumbo Kids. I run them in Karnataka, Andhra, and Telangana. I've also started an alternative education space called Tapas. And I think there is so much wrong with the education system right now, and it's my small way of correcting what's wrong.
You're already running two startups? I can't even manage my Instagram page, and I don't know how she's managing two startups. That is so cool. Can I know your name and what you're doing?
Hi, my name is Nikita. I've co-founded a company called Shopre. We enable Indian e-commerces globally. My co-founder Saira and myself, both of us childhood friends, we grew up in the Middle East for a major chunk, and it was always challenging to get Indian goods abroad, be it Indian clothes, food, jewelry, accessories, anything. So Shopre is a company founded with the intention to democratize Indian products abroad, make it affordable, accessible for everyone at all points of the year. So, yeah.
Wow, that is really, really interesting. We have a kombucha entrepreneur, we have a mental health entrepreneur, we have an educationalist, and we have an e-commerce entrepreneur. This is going to be a very, very interesting session. For me, entrepreneurship has always been about the mindset. What is the story? What is the reason behind anybody starting their startup? And what's the reason behind them going through all the things that you endure while running a startup and still not giving up because of that one simple reason that motivates you for life? What we're going to do now is try and understand what their motive was, or what is that one incident that made them do what they're doing today, right? We go first to obviously our kombucha entrepreneur. And it's very interesting because kombucha is a very, very new form of beverage, especially in India. It is very commonplace abroad, but kombucha as a beverage is just picking up in India. So I really want to know, what made you pick kombucha and probably not regular soda or juice or any other thing, and why kombucha?
So I feel that the name itself, kombucha, spoke to me, and it was not like the very first instance that I learned about it. So it had a backstory. I used to work in corporate field, and like any other corporate employee, I wanted to take a break. It was December, and I wanted to volunteer at an arts festival. I packed my bags. I told my manager that I'm leaving for 10 days, and 10 days was a huge gap. So I just went to Goa. I enrolled for the volunteering program. It was called Serendipity Arts Festival. What are the odds? So that's when I was volunteering for the food workshops there, and I come across this very funky looking jar which had some mushroom kind of growth on it, and I started to talk with the trainer. So they told me, they explained the entire concept of kombucha, how it tastes, how much health benefit it has, and I was so surprised to see that not many people knew about it. It is so amazing in terms of health benefits, and it had a refreshing taste. So it was the starting point where I learned about the beverage, and then it took me to the US. I traveled, and immediately I could see their kombucha bottles, commercial kombucha available in US supermarkets. And then I also happened to taste homemade kombucha. And then I could figure out the difference. Okay, this commercial kombucha, it may be available, but the taste and the refreshing nature and the health benefits cannot be compared with what we have as a homemade. So that kind of pushed me into brewing my own kombucha, bringing the culture back to India, brewing my own, doing all the mad scientist experiments, and taking my brews to a tiny getting sold out. So that was my first chance with entrepreneurship, I feel. It was in 2019.
It's really, really interesting as to how just a random event spurred such a big idea in your head. And it's a very, very fascinating story. And I just want to add that it's these small moments in life that extremely important to be present in the moment at all times, because you never know what small moment can absolutely change your life, a completely new direction, and also lead to a more fulfilled and richer life. Leanne, you run the Unopened Box, mental health startup. Personally, I'm sorry guys, but this one is my favorite because I am a big supporter of mental health. I've gone for therapy myself. I also understand the need as to how younger people, especially Gen Z and millennials, now need mental health support more than any time in human history, just because of the sheer stress they face every single day, the social media pressure, FOMO, the need to present themselves in a certain way. What made you come up? I mean, you're a psychological therapist. You're a therapist who was already taking patients, right?
Yes.
So what made you come up with a startup around it? Why not just start consulting yourself like you were doing?
So, what you said was entirely a large part of why I started what I did. But I think this was my 20-year plan. I didn't assume it would take off so fast. But I noticed that when the pandemic hit, it was on the heels of the passing of Sushant Singh Rajput, which shook the country to its core. And this touched me personally because I lost one of my closest friends to suicide many, many years ago. And that's a large reason as to why I'm a trauma therapist. And I said, okay, let's put out content because not a lot of people had content about how to cope with grief, how to deal with healing. And when I noticed people responding to that, that's when I said, hey, we have something here, because people would reply saying, hey, we really like what you're doing. We want to know how you make it so accessible, how you make it so easy for us. We're able to understand the content, which I think we have a lot of international creators, but not a lot of Indian creators who are reaching the masses. And that's when my waiting list shot up to 42 people by April 2020. And that kind of overwhelmed me because I didn't have the slots to take on 42 additional people. And I said, okay, let's start with, training interns, because I'm also a lecturer and I enjoy teaching. And we started training interns. People were informed that these are my interns. They are not therapists yet, but they're on their way to becoming therapists. People tried them out. People loved them, continued as full-time clients with them. We absorbed the interns into the organization, and that's when I said we have a method that's really working. We started getting referrals. I work international clients. I've been working international clients for 8 years now, and my people started working international clients, and it was going quite well. And I said, okay, we have something here, and that's when I said this actually has potential to grow. And WSP happened alongside, and it was just one thing after the other that led to where we are today.
That is so inspiring, Leanne. Whoever's watching this, I think not only are there need for more psychologists and more therapists in India, India is one of those few countries in the world that has least access to therapists and psychologists, and also there's a massive taboo around therapy and psychology. And if you're somebody who's looking to start something in this space or wants to work with Leanne, please reach out to her, because I really think that if we end up having more therapists and more psychologists, we as a country will just be a generally more happier country. Right, Preeti. So you are the serial entrepreneur. Yes. You're managing 2 ventures at the same time. I think you should probably give us tips on how to do that first, because I think we all need time management tips. But how I'm just flabbergasted. Like, how are you running two startups? What spurred you on to do this? What inspired you? What was your aha moment?
So, I think entrepreneurship is in my blood. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So, I've grown up with people speaking about business at home, right? So, we've been tuned to listening to and looking for opportunities. So, it was always in my blood. And when I first joined a corporate in the L&D department, I was given the task of implementing one of the induction programs. I looked at the people in the program and I could see that they were struggling. I could see that there was some people who took, especially I could see the comparison between two people. One was really failing and was really bored with the program, whereas another one was able to take up the information quickly, process it, assimilate it better. So it really made me think about when was the last time I enjoyed learning, and when did I have that aha moment in terms of learning. And I realized there was this fantastic math teacher at school, and when everybody around me was saying that they hated math, this teacher had managed to make me want to learn math more. And I said learning has to be that where it inspires you, it has to make you better, and it cannot be when you're an adult, it has to be when you are a child, right? You have to learn, and that's where the aha moment came. And I said we'll start with early years, and then after 20 years of being in early years, I said, I mean, it has to grow, and that's where the next venture happened. So that's
quite cool. That's quite cool, Preeti, and I love your objective. I want to teach kids at an earlier age so they can keep learning for life.
Absolutely. Yes.
Guys, if you see, there's a very common thread here, and that all of the entrepreneurs have a very simple one-line mission statement, right? So if you look at Honey, I want to make healthy beverages accessible to Indians. If you look at Liane, I want to make mental health more accessible to Indians. If you look at Preeti, I want to teach kids at a younger age so they continue lifelong learning. And to all the entrepreneurs watching out there, you have to distill your entire problem statement to one line. And if you look at any major startups, their entire problem statement comes down to one line, right? So probably if you go and ask the Uber founder what his problem statement is, I want to make public transport accessible to every single person. Or if you ask Swiggy founder what his problem statement is, I want to make sure people get home delivered food within 30 minutes. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, always think of whether your problem statement can be really hashed out in one simple line. Because the simpler your problem statement, the more easier it is to start up. True. Right, we go to our last founder, Nikita. So Nikita, what was your aha moment and what made you start your e-commerce company?
Okay, so that's really hard to drill down to a single event because, like I said, I grew up in the Middle East, and access to Indian goods are really a perpetual problem, faced by most people living there. So I guess you would all have had those relatives who would come back to India and carry ton loads of Indian goods back to the country where they are residing. So there was this one particular travel that we had. My mom and I were traveling down to India, and then, like any other person, we had a lot of stuffs packed into the luggage, the clothes, the food, the grandmom's really favorite cooked food, hand cooked food. We reach at the counter while checking in for the flight, and the guy says that it's really over the permitted amount of goods that you can luggage that you can carry, and we had to sort of let go of a lot of things. We had to give it off to some people, and some had to be thrown off. It was a very painful sight to see. Literally, my mom and I sort of teared up, thinking that this took so long to prepare all this, and then you had to give it away for some reason. So the thought process was simple. In India, we have really good e-commerce that's growing at a terrific pace. There are a lot of global consumers who want Indian goods. How can we leverage this e-commerce growth to make it accessible to people abroad? That's the story, I guess.
That's a pretty cool startup, making Indian goods accessible to NRIs. Although I would want more goods from the Middle East back in India, I like how you've reverse processed the whole thing. But that's a pretty cool idea, and I think considering the number of NRIs who come back here and they're just not able to take a lot of stuff. My brother lives in Canada, and I know that my mom really cooks so much for him, but it's not possible for him to take all of that.
Right.
I'm definitely going to ask him to use your startup from now. Yeah,
Definitely,
for sure.
Thank you.
Right, guys. So we've heard their story, we've understood what was their aha moment, we've kind of come to an understanding about, okay, fine, this was my problem and this is how I solved it, okay, but how did they get to where they are, right? We're all sitting at NSRCEL, which is one of India's largest entrepreneurship incubators and helps entrepreneurs across the country realize their dreams. And all four of them are products of the NSRCEL programs. And I want to find out, okay, you came up with the idea, you had this problem that you wanted to solve, now what? So, Honey, take us through that process.
Absolutely. So when I had decided to leave my corporate job, I thought that I make some money, the salary, and I think by selling kombucha, I can still make that much salary. It's pretty straightforward. I did not know that I'm going to be running a proper startup, getting people on board and talking with business accounts. So I did not have any such idea. So I thought, okay, I'll make kombucha in my tiny jars. I'll sell in farmers markets. But then I realized the more I started to progress in the journey, I realized that I would be doing multiple things across, right from sales process to marketing and distribution. So that was a big eye opener for me. And I think the NSRCEL program came at the right time where I was looking for guidance and direction. And one fine day, I get to know that there's a program that's going to be run by IIMB. And that's how I enrolled and started my journey from like pre-incubation till incubation.
What about you, Leanne? How did you discover this program, and what was your experience just getting into it?
So interestingly, as Sunny was talking about it, I realized it was twofold for me. So the first part was I received an international certification in Jan 2020, which is really great for where I'm at in my work, but was also a place where I said, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Like, I love being a therapist, I love being a supervisor for therapists, but as much as I love it, I want more from it, I just don't know what I want. And I had itchy heels, and my supervisor said, Leanne, think about doing a PhD. And I'm like, I do enough research, I don't know if I want to commit 6 years to a PhD yet, but I'm not entirely sure what I want. And there was this sort of restlessness that had seeped in, and I knew I wanted to do something. Right, I was already playing multiple roles, and at that point my mom came up to me. So she runs her own venture called NL Skin and Hair Company, which is a skincare brand, and she's been doing it on her own for a bit, but she wanted to understand the nuances of it, and she's probably the entrepreneur in our family, a first-gen entrepreneur herself. And that's when she said, listen, I'm doing this, do you want to give me some company, because if there's something I don't understand, you can understand, and sort of like work together and do this as a fun project. It's a 5-week course. So I said, okay, cool, like it's 5 weeks, I don't know much, and I'm not someone who understands diddly squat about MBAs and anything like it, but I said, yeah, maybe right now I'm restless, let's try. And I tried it and I loved it, and I think it was, the 5-week course was amazing, and after that there was Launchpad and I got selected for that, and I'm like, okay, this sounds good, and suddenly my Instagram page now had more things going on, more services, there was so much depth to it, which seemed super exciting, and it had given me that jolt that I needed. So I said, okay, this is working, and then we did Launchpad, and that went even deeper, and then we had incubation, we just took it to another level. So my entire 20-year plan, I think, got accomplished in 6 months.
Wow.
Which was something that I'll say is all credit to NSRCEL and WSP, because that really changed the way we functioned.
Okay, so this is how it works, right? So basically you come up with an idea, and you have an idea, and now you want to figure how to get that, into a full-blown startup. Now, a startup involves a lot of things, like they said, right? It involves marketing, it involves hiring, it involves setting up the company, it involves the tech side. So there are a bunch of things that go into a startup. Now, for you to understand how that works, you need to join a particular program, so you can get an idea of everything that goes into running a startup. That's where NSRCEL comes in. So NSRCEL is like a program. It teaches you everything you need to know about entrepreneurship. So by the time you get out of it, you know exactly how to be running your startup or your venture. And not only that, NSRCEL takes you from 0 to 10, but also 10 to 100. So the next two participants that we're going to be talking about, they are the ones who are part of a program where they've already crossed a 30 lakh threshold in revenue. So NSRCEL is now helping them grow even more and probably help them raise funding and probably get to the next level. So NSRCEL is like a one-stop shop, whichever stage of a startup that you're in. Right. So Preeti, your venture is at a little later stage, right? Can you tell me, you already started up, you probably already had revenue coming in.
Yes.
Then why NSRCEL, and how does the whole thing fit?
So, my venture is about 20 years old now, so
Wow.
it's a pretty seasoned venture. And I felt I was doing everything right. We were on a good growth trajectory. We kept that growth up for many years. The pandemic came as a very rude shock, because 2020 and my revenues dropped to 12% of what it was. So it was suddenly I was faced with such a big challenge. Also, my venture is into franchising of preschools, which means that I have a lot of women entrepreneurs who are associated with me. And I have been a mentor to them for these many years. So suddenly I have women looking up to me for what am I supposed to do now? Listen, either closed my school down or what am I supposed to do? And so I realized maybe I'm not equipped for this, and I started looking out for what else I can do. And that's when I think social media again I came across this program, and I already knew somebody who had completed the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program. So I was really inspired, and I joined. And it really helped me because I think out of that entire 3 months came the idea of starting a school which is in the alternative space. So there was vertical integration. I made sure that I wasn't stagnant in just early childhood and went on to whatever I believed in, continued to more elementary and secondary school education as well. So that's the kind of impetus that the program gave me.
Wow. I love the fact that, you can be from any field and then they can figure out how to, streamline your startup and get you going. We have somebody, who just thought of a beverage. We have somebody who's in the mental health space. We have somebody who's been running their own ventures for 20 years. And NSRCEL kind of, puts all of that together and help you become a seasoned entrepreneur. Also, another reason why you should go to NSRCEL is that's the only way you can get into IIM, right? So that's a major plus point as well. What about you, Nikita? What was your journey? Considering again, I'm sure you had everything in place before you joined NSRCEL. So what was your journey coming in and taking your venture to the next step?
So the major thing is that I don't come from a business family at all. So you really don't know anything about how to run a business. Just like she said, you probably initially think that okay, it's just about selling something, and then you could probably make some money, just like how you were doing before. So I took the jump. I'm a very impulsive person. I took the jump and then started. Early traction was good. We started getting customers, and we were almost a year and a half into operations, and then it's about the next question is about how do you take it to the next level? What next? How do you scale this venture? How do you bring some structure? What are the lacunae currently happening? So being a person from a technical background sort of hit roadblock in all these areas. So I was sort of, I think, constantly looking out for programs that could upskill me, in all these aspects. So the interesting part about this program, I feel, the Goldman Sachs 10K Women program, is that it's a 3-month program, and you sort of have to be part of the program for 1 week each at every month at IIM campus. So that sort of fitted into my schedule because you're running the business and you cannot sort of dedicate an entire month for learning something. So this rightly fitted into the schedule, and it was framed in such a manner that you sort of go for the course and attend it, and then you come back and implement it. So there's a time where you can go and learn and then come back and implement. So that kind of highlighted me, and then that's what I wanted to do. And obviously, like you said, it's IIM and the premium institute. So what could be better? That's what sort of got me into the program. And yes, definitely, like you said, it really helped me sort of meet all these challenges that I was facing at that point of time.
Pretty cool. I really think if I would have gone to NSRCEL when I was starting up, I wouldn't have to brave any aunties for sure. So as you can see, all the entrepreneurs here have gone through various programs at the NSRCEL. NSRCEL has been around for the last 20 years, so they bring a whole gamut of experience. And you could be an entrepreneur who wants to make kombucha, you could be a mental health entrepreneur, you could be an educationalist, an e-commerce entrepreneur, or any field in real. They have access to mentors, they have access to industry experts. So you can dream of any startup that you want, and NSRCEL is a place that you can come and refine those ideas and actually launch those startups and ventures. Now, I really want to understand from our fellow entrepreneurs here, what did they really learn at these programs? What were these programs called? And what is their key takeaway from these programs? So, Honey, you said that, the NSR Cell program was something that was really enlightening for you.
Yeah.
Could you tell me what was the main takeaway from the program for you, especially related to your startup?
Absolutely. So the program that I registered with was Women Startup Program 3.0. And I think one of the biggest learnings that I had during my journey was that I shifted my focus from being a product-centric focus to a more customer-centric focus. Before joining the program, I was more kind of obsessed with thinking about the product a lot, right from developing to taking it to the market. But then when I started to talk with the mentors here and going through the program, I realized that my focus need to shift from being product specific to customer specific, because at the end of it, we want to know what the customers are actually looking for. The product market fit is the most crucial strategy that you can deploy in order to get your product success, the kind of product success that you want. So I think this opened a whole new gamut for me to explore in terms of getting the right customer feedback, the right customer insight, and tweaking our product backwards and bringing good stuff in the market.
That's a very, very interesting point, and this is something that every entrepreneur should know, which is known as the product market fit. Product market fit is basically, is there a market for the product that you're launching in the market, right? And understanding product market fit is one of the most important aspects of understanding entrepreneurship, right? For example, let's say you really love chocolate ice cream and you want to sell chocolate ice cream, but you're selling it in a market that is probably already crowded with chocolate ice cream, or there is no market for chocolate ice cream. So when you come to a program like this, they'll tell you probably how to alter that chocolate ice cream more in line with what your customer wants, so that you actually end up selling a lot of those ice creams. That, in essence, is what product market fit is. And again, these are the things that you get to learn in various programs at the NSR Cell. Leanne, yours is a very, very interesting journey, right? So you are a psychologist and you started a mental health startup. How did the NSR Cell actually help you, not only grow your startup, but also fine tune it and refine it and take it to where it is?
Right, so this was very interesting because I think in some ways as a solopreneur who did it all by myself, so you manage your clients, you get your feedback, and you're doing it solo. So learning to delegate was a huge, huge deal. And you reach a point where you realize if you want to grow, you have to delegate. You have to reach out. You have to trust that someone else can do what they do. And it's not just enough to delegate. You need to learn to put yourself out there. And as an introvert, also as a person who generally tends, as therapists, we generally quiet people. So we tend to stick to ourselves. And suddenly you're putting yourself out there, overriding your own philosophy. That I remember one of my biggest arguments with my mentor would be, it is a business. No, it's a venture. And she's like, no, it is a business. Get used to the idea that it's a business. And you've got to put yourself out there to pitch, learn to actually access people, reach out, talk about what you're doing. And it was a huge mindset shift to actually let go and, let people in and take over little bits of it. So that was interesting. But I think what was really impactful for me were two things. One was structure and one was strategy. Because when you're working solo, it's all within your control. You know exactly how much to do, when to take your breaks, how to walk away from something, not walk away from something. But when you're managing a team, you need structure in place as to what your protocols are. And that's something that we got massively with NSRCEL at every level. Structure for your marketing, structure for your advertising, structure for your communication, structure for everything. Right? And strategy also, because I think something that really helped with the milestones and sprints, because it literally broke everything down into the tiniest thing and made it so accomplishable, where you'd go out there, do it, and you see it working, and it's just, one step to the next, which is why the 20-year goal happened in 6 months. And they also prepare you, and the beauty of that is they also prepare you saying, okay, you've done this much, now what's next? And don't stop the milestones here. Take it forward so you can come back for the next program. And I think that
is really, really inspiring, Leanne. And once again, this is not something that you can just learn by yourself. Also, what Leanne was talking about is something extremely important, because when it comes to entrepreneurship, a lot of it has to do with the mindset. And especially we Indians, we've conditioned ourselves to a lot of things that you may not even realize. For example, one of our strong conditioning is that money is bad. Now, the moment your conditioning is that money is bad, you'll never be a successful entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, you need to make money. You need to pay salaries, you need to grow your business, right? Another conditioning that we have is, don't show off your venture or don't talk too much about it. It's a very, very Indian conditioning, but unless you do that, how will people get to know about your startup? How will your startup grow? And how will people be able to access your startup? So all of these conditionings need to be worked upon. And you can't just work upon these conditionings just by yourself. If you really want to grow your startup, you want to become a businessman, you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to work on a lot of this conditioning. And as Leanne mentioned, she went and grew away from just a solopreneur. She became more extroverted. She understood that money is important in a business. She also understood the importance of process and structure. What's the process and structure when it comes to hiring, marketing, strategy, customer support, all of that. And all of these things were given to her in a very simple and easy way by the NSRCEL, which I think is very cool as well. So that's the magic of being part of an incubator like this, right? It takes you from just a person to become more than just a person and actually have the mindset of an entrepreneur. We now go to Preeti. Preeti, remember, already had 2 ventures running. She had been an entrepreneur for 20 years. She had been an educationist for 20 years. Now it'll be really interesting to understand from Preeti, in spite of having so much experience in so many different things, how did something like NSRCEL help her?
First thing I remember is our first lecture was by Professor Suresh Bhagwatula, and he said networking is critical. If you're not networking, get out of business. So, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done that in 20 years. So that was the first aha moment right in the first lecture. And each session after that, I think it gave a roadmap to how we should be running a business, because what I did with my first venture was a lot of trial and error. I did something, it worked, it didn't work, then I learned from it. So here we, like you mentioned just now, there was a much clearer roadmap that was given to us. I now knew if I hired a social media expert, what are the questions I should be asking? What should I be talking to my CA? How should my leadership be? So I think in all facets of being an entrepreneur, it really polished my skills. And I felt especially the mentoring was spot on, because I found a fantastic mentor in Professor Sunil Handa, who continues to mentor me till date, though the program was a year ago. And I think that is a great, the benefit of having mentors who've been an entrepreneur themselves and have been teaching. So I think that is something very unique to NSRCEL. Plus, I think continuing the networking part of it that I started with, our cohort has been extremely connected. I think we started something called as Wow Wednesdays, and every Wednesday since we completed the course till now, we continue to meet, and then we are supporting each other like never before. So I think this has helped me have not 1 or 2 co-founders, it's almost having 125 co-founders who are supporting me on this journey. So that's the benefit of being in a program like this.
That's wonderful, Preeti, and very, very well said. You can be an entrepreneur and you can be a seasoned entrepreneur, but entrepreneurship is something that is lifelong learning, right? There's always something to learn. And once again, the word networking may sound so simple and easy, but having the courage to walk up to a totally random person, introducing yourself and trying to get their number and their contact and trying to get their time is not that simple and easy at all. But like Preeti said and our mentor said, if you don't network, then don't be in business at all. And what is that secret sauce to secret sauce to networking? How do you really walk up to a person? How do you get their time, their email, their phone number? Well, that's a secret that you will have to learn. But those are the things that you can learn at the NSRCEL, no matter what stage of your venture or startup you're in. Nikita, so tell us about, you said you already had customers, you had everything going, and that's when you decided to jump into NSRCEL. What did you learn here and what is your key takeaway?
Right, so just like you said, we had our early set of customers and everything was going fine, and then we just didn't know how to take it to the next level. So I think one of the critical things that I learned from here was how to look at your business from 3 different perspectives, how to look at the ecosystem from 3 different perspectives. One is you as a founder and how do you fit in this journey. Second is at the company level, what happens inside the company. And third is how does your company fit into the macroeconomic picture or the global picture. So while you're running a company, you tend to be so obsessed about the company, you miss out on the different perspectives. So I was just focused on the company aspect. I did not think about my role in this ecosystem and what would this company be in the global ecosystem probably much later. So giving that perspective was really amazing. So like I said, the program spanned over 3 months, right? So they were sort of zooming in onto you in the beginning and then zooming out, and then towards the end of the program you're sort of getting a bird's eye view of where your company is. So I think that was brilliant. That really gave a lot of understanding. The second was I was a financially challenged person when it comes to understanding, the balance sheet or the profits, losses. Yeah, I mean, from a common sense aspect, yes, there are certain things that you can understand. But what do each of these things mean, and how does tweaking things around, help you grow your business? That was a revolutionary exercise, that we went through. So going back, I was really able to picture, okay, this is where the money comes from, this is where the money goes out, and these are the tweaks that you need to do to run this business profitably. So that was, I think, tremendous. And thirdly, I think just like she said, the art of delegation, right? So you're an obsessed founder and all you do is, you want to do everything. But that's not how things work. So I think and most often we also hear you need to delegate, but how do you do it? How can you do it in the right manner? So that's something that I really learned, and we were able to go back and set up the leadership team and empower them to do things, to take things forward. So yeah, these were my learnings.
That's very, very interesting, Nikita, and I think that those are great takeaways. I always say this: if you want to be an entrepreneur, no matter Microsoft Excel or not, no matter you don't come from any sort of math background or finance background or accounts background, you need to know how a cash flow statement works. The reason why you need to know how a cash flow statement works is because at any given point of time, then you know how much money your startup is bringing in, how much money is going out of your startup, and at the start of every month, how much money you have. Why does that help? Because once you know how much money you have, you can take so many decisions based on that. So whether you have an accountant, whether you have a co-founder who's handling the finance, never ever forget to understand how a cash flow statement works, and trust me, once you understand it, it's super easy to actually figure it out. As you can see, there are so many different aspects to entrepreneurship. There is hiring, there is finance, there is delegating, there is networking, there is strategy, there is customer experience, there is product market fit. There's a whole gamut of things that you need to learn when you get started just with the idea. And what we've seen from these 4 young entrepreneurs today is that they not only figured out what the idea was, but how to take it to the next level and how to figure out all of these nuances and all of these different things that they need to get better at to take their startups to the next level. We're going to conclude this session by asking each one of them one story or incident that they recently encountered, which is probably a sale of their product or a smile on their customer's face, which made this entire journey worthwhile.
I started as a home brewer, kombucha home brewer, and now we get responses on our social media about folks who are taking up kombucha brewing as a passion, and there are people who are taking their passion to the next level by becoming kombucha entrepreneurs. So they would reach out to us and they would ask us like tips, or they would want some references. So it's great to help them and also pass on that knowledge, whatever knowledge that we are kind of coming across, because it's a very new field. There are no kombucha experts in the country or world for that matter. So every time we are doing something, we are gaining that experience and we are passing on to the next generation of kombucha entrepreneurs. So I feel that the sense of responsibility that we have kind of took upon us, and feeling that satisfaction that we are kind of helping entrepreneurs of a very different genre altogether to be coming in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So I feel that that sense of happiness and responsibility towards that.
Creating an entire ecosystem around kombucha. That is what Honey and her team is doing now. Leanne, can you give us one incident or one customer story that makes all of this worthwhile?
So I think for us, it was the fact that there's this one client who is coming to my intern. And the reason I picked the intern is because she's someone who has almost 1 year of my brain in her head, right? I've trained her to such an extent. And she called me up in the beginning saying, are you sure that I would work with your intern? I'll wait 6 months. And she had actually waited 6 months to work with me. And I'm like, lady, you cannot wait any longer. Please go to the intern. Trust me on this. And she did. And the other day she called me up and she's like, yeah, so I finished working with your intern and I need to send some people to you. Would you be open to taking them on? And I said, no. And she's like, so do I send them to the intern now? So I'm like, yeah. And watching her actually trust that my intern would be able to handle it, or any of the other people, because she trusts the organization. Each of them is now working international cases, from my intern right to my colleagues. And in my head, I'm just like, now I can breathe, because I can see it happening, and I know that they're at a level where they can start training the next batch that comes in, and seeing that process, like my 20-year plan, beginning to take shape. For me, that's full circle for me, and it just feels like we're at a place where I wanted to be before we continue, or rather begin the next part of our journey.
That is so nice to hear, and I think that's the beauty about entrepreneurship. It is hard. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of pain. Honestly, I always equate entrepreneurship to having like a toxic relationship, because you're always loving it and hating it at the same time. But it's moments like these, that make it so beautiful. Preeti, what about you?
So last Saturday we had Varshikotsava, which is the annual celebration of learning at our school called Tapas. This is a 100% child-led event. That means they plan, they execute, they take care of the whole thing. And these are learners between 6 to 8 year olds. A week before the Varshikotsav, we had one of the learners who was anointed as the boss by all the others. He came up to the facilitator and he said, on the day of Varshikotsava, we will have parents coming in, so I will have to check their temperature and sign in. So can I do a dry run with the students when they are coming in? And we were like, wow. He thought about it. So he did the dry run. He made notes of the parents coming in and signing in. And he came back and he said, you know what, it's taking too long. If I'm going to check temperature and write their name and sign them in, it's taking too long. They will queue up and it's not good. We have to maintain social distancing. So he said, let them write their name. I'll just check the temperature. So you see the whole process. They anticipated a bottleneck. He checked himself and then he even found the solution for it. And I think this is what learning is about. We didn't have to at any point as an adult intervene in this whole process.
And this is a 7-year-old boy?
This is an 8-year-old boy,
8-year-old
but yeah,
boy.
I mean, you get the point,
Wow.
right? This is what learning should
That
look like.
must have been such a happy moment for you
It
to
was.
say. Yeah. What about you, Nikita? For you, what was your aha moment?
Well, I mean, I think throughout the journey you'll have multiple aha moments, but there was this specific one where in Dubai, my mom still stays in Dubai, and then she visited an exhibition there. And some of them, actually recognized her and said, "Oh, this is Shopre's mom." And then,
Wow.
they were all really excited to meet her and said that all of us get stuff from India, right now through Shopre, and it's been really nice. So I think that was really amazing. It felt really nice that, people were using the services and they were happy about it, and they sort of recognized my mom and mentioned that. I think that was the one.
My friend and I, we started one of India's first e-commerce companies in 2009. We came up with the idea in a bar, and the idea was to sell sweatshirts for schools and colleges. Our school was called Cottonian, and that was the first sweatshirt that we had made. 3 years into running the business back then, I remember going through a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and that a lot of times we'd try to give up and all of that. But there was this one day, my friend and I, we were sitting in exactly the same bar where we came up with the idea, and we saw a random guy wearing the Cottonian sweatshirt. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's that one moment of happiness, it's that one moment where you feel all of this effort that's gone into this is worthwhile. And I think this is what our session about. This is what our session here today has been about. It's about what is your idea, how do you get it going, how do you become an entrepreneur, how do you streamline your idea, and more importantly, how do you find contentment and happiness in spite of all the chaos that there is. I would like to thank all my participants for joining me for this wonderful session. Thank you so much, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, both men and women, are going to be inspired by your journey. And thank you so much for joining us, guys. I hope you had a great session, and I'll see you guys soon.